Hi there, hi everybody. I'm Dr. Francesca Zampollo, and as you know, I talk about food design. So welcome to this live video with you guys. And I wanted to do this, I guess I wanted to do this live because I'm talking about something that is in a way personal, something that I've been thinking about for a while and something I've been wanting to share for a while. And maybe because of all of these, I wanted to share it with you in a way that is more personal. So that's why the live, I guess, instead of a more scripted video. So today we'll be talking about something that I called the food design formula, my food design formula. It's going to be a bit controversial, I think. Some of you are going to think it's a great idea and are going to be completely on board. Some other are going to think that I'm completely crazy and maybe a hippie, which is fine. And some other maybe are going to say, oh, this is something new. So, but I'm interested in maybe thinking about it a little bit. Well, let's just get straight into it. In the meantime, of course, if you have questions, do write them in the chat room that you see. I won't be reading them as I speak, but I will be reading them in the end. Okay, so let me share with you my PDF. Okay, so I think you should be able to see it now. Right, so this is my food design formula, straight into it. I'm arguing that the formula for sustainable food design is minimalism plus veganism. So I'm arguing that if you want to pursue a sustainable future, if you want to design for a sustainable future, if you want to live in a more sustainable way, then what you can do is apply minimalism to your life as a consumer and as a food designer. Okay, so I'm going to explain how I got there, which is really quite simple, you'll see, but I'm going to give you a bit of a background. Of the 6 billion pounds of produce that is wasted each year in the USA, for example, many of these fruits and vegetables are discarded because of their appearance. We've heard of these, we've heard of ugly food, etc. A single restaurant can produce from 25,000 to 75,000 pounds of food waste in 1 year. 84.3% of unused food in American restaurants, for example, ends up being disposed of, while only 14.3% is recycled and only 1.4% is donated. And yet in the USA, for example, 41 million people struggle with hunger today. The contribution of food wastage emissions to global warming is almost equivalent to transport emission, which means that if food waste were a country, it would be the third largest emitting country in the world. In urban areas, fruit and nut trees often go unharvested because people either don't realize that the fruit is edible or they fear that it is contaminated, despite a lot of research that shows that urban fruit is perfectly safe to consume. Confusion over the meaning of date labels is estimated to account for 20% of consumer waste of safe, edible food, just because we don't understand the labels. 1.4 billion hectares of land, 28% of the world's agricultural area, is used annually to produce food that is lost or wasted. Agriculture and animal farming are the main causes of deforestation. About 48 football fields worth of trees are lost every minute. About half of the world's tropical forests have been cleared. Half of the world's tropical forests. Since the 1600s, for example, 90% of the United States indigenous forests, let's say United States, for example, indigenous forest has been destroyed. 90%, 90. And up to 28,000 species can go extinct in the next quarter century due to deforestation. If we continue like this, by the year 2030, we might only have 10% of rainforest left. And it can all disappear in 100 years. So we're talking about losing the planet's lungs, the way we breathe, the way the planet breathes, and therefore the way we breathe oxygen. So we can all lose it. We can lose it all in 100 years. Food waste consumes 21% of fresh water, which means that 21% of our fresh water is used to make food that is going to be thrown away. And in the meantime, 844 million people in the world don't have access to clean water. Food packaging, now we talk about food packaging a little bit, is approximately 50% of the total packaging sales. So by weight, if you weigh all packaging that is made by human beings, of course, 50% is food packaging. So it really knocks at our food designer's door. 90% of all seabirds have plastic in their stomachs. And if you think about that plastic which is in the ocean was most likely from packaging, and therefore half of it is definitely from food packaging. A recent study looked for plastic contamination in tap water of cities around the world. This study came out, I think, in July of this year, 2017. 83% of the samples were contaminated with plastic fibers. The USA, for example, had the highest contamination rate at 94%. This means that we are drinking plastic every day. In 2014, we have a number from a 2014 study. Only 9.5% of plastic material was recycled in the USA. Another 15% was combusted for energy, while 75.5% was sent to landfills. So every time you buy a bottle of water or soda or whatever else, juice or whatever else comes in a plastic bottle, and you think, oh, well, but I'm doing the right thing because plastic can be recycled. Well, remember that in reality, it is not. Only 9.5% of all plastic is actually recycled. Basically everything else goes into landfills. And it takes up to 500 years to decompose plastic items in landfills. In the USA, produces about 100 billion aluminum beverage cans a year. About 33 billion of these are not recycled. And so about 33% of all the aluminum beverage cans that are produced are not recycled. And it takes aluminum cans in the landfill between 200 and 500 years to decompose. In 2013, 59% of beer and soft drink bottles, so glass bottles, and 66% of glass wine or liquor bottles were not recycled. So we're talking about 59% of beer and soft drinks bottles and 66% of wine and liquor bottles. So basically way more than half of all of the glass bottles that we produce are not recycled. And glass in landfill takes 1 to 2 million years to decompose. And all these pictures that I've given you of waste and and food waste is without. It's just about food itself and its packaging, without considering what happens, for example, to cooking equipment, kitchenware, tableware, furniture for the eating environment, etc. All this stuff lasts for longer than food packaging, for example, for sure. Cooking equipment, kitchenware, tableware, they may last decades, maybe sometimes hundreds of years, I don't know. But at some point it does become rubbish, and at some point it is thrown away. So to me, when we talk about food waste in general, we're not just talking about the organic material, the edible material, but everything that is used in food systems and that at some point is thrown away. And this is another interesting way to look at it, another interesting thing to remember, I think. This year, Earth Overshoot Day was August 2nd, which means that since August 2nd of 2017, we have been taking more than this planet has to offer us. And we have been doing this since 1971. We keep using enormous amount of materials and resources and energy to make food that is going to be wasted, to make packaging that is going to be thrown away, and to recycle stuff that just could have been designed in a way to have a smaller environmental impact. We are constantly borrowing resources from this planet. So you were probably already familiar with most of these numbers, and there's nothing really new in what I've said here. But I feel that it is important to take the time and remember. It is important to talk about these numbers because we have to remember what is at stake here. We have to remember the damage that we as a species have done and continue doing, and that we have to remember so that we can't stop innovating, that we can't stop coming up with new sustainable ideas. And thanks God you are a bunch of food designers, and so that's exactly what we can do. So to me, the most important question that we can ask really is how can food design help? How can I apply the food design principles and strategies to design for a better future, to design in a more sustainable way? And this is exactly the question to which I would like to give an answer today. Before I do that, I want us to consider this thinking for a moment. Let me skip forward. Okay. I think we have to remember that when we design, there are 3 possible levels of intervention. Okay, so if we look at this pyramid here, and like this pyramid, let's think of this pyramid as as all the waste that we can make, that we have made, that we are making, and that we will make. So there is a lot of waste that we have made in the past. So the first part of the pyramid. In the past, we have made a lot of waste, and this is all the stuff that we have been throwing away up until 5 minutes ago, when we threw away I don't know, something from our kitchen after we finished lunch or something. So everything that we have ever thrown away as a species and as human being up until 5 minutes ago. And then we have the waste that we make in the present. So this is the waste that I can probably make. So this is the food packaging, for example, that I have in my kitchen right now. And after I've done eating the food inside the packaging, I will be throwing it away. So this is the possible food waste that I'm making in the present. And then we have the food waste that we could make in the future. So ideally, what we want to have here is this pyramid. So yes, we have done a lot of damage in the past. There is a lot of things that we can do in the present, and hopefully there will be very little food waste in the future, possibly zero food waste in the future. So if we look at the center of the pyramid, we have the protagonists of these food waste, those who make this food waste, which are usually the consumer and food services. Consumers and food services have a relationship. They make waste for one another, with one another, but they are also always inside a food system, inside of which there's of course other stuff like organizations, policymakers, etc. And it's way more complex than how I have visualized it here, but I'm simplifying. On the right, on the other hand, we have the designer, whom you can identify, of course, because he has a pen in his ear. And that's, of course, how you identify a designer, or a food designer indeed. So the designer has these three different levels of intervention. We can design a solution to deal with the food waste that we have made in the past. We can design solutions in order to not make food waste of the stuff that we have already in the present. And we can design solutions so that we will not make any more food waste in the future. And one thing that I want to bring your attention to is the Environmental Protection Agency food recovery hierarchy. And as you can see here, we have at the top, so these are the things we need to do right now, yesterday, from the Environmental Protection Agency to reduce food waste. And we have at the top source reduction, feed hungry people, feed animals, industrial uses, composting, and landfill. So these are all the things that you can do with your waste. If you notice, landfill is the least preferred option because, of course, it is the one that has a bigger environmental impact. And the most preferred option is source reduction. So this will come in very handy later on. So I want to talk about, I want us all to remember that as food designers, we have these three levels of intervention. And I think to me, they're all equally important. So definitely, let's keep designing systems and services to deal with the mess we have already done. Let's also design food systems and services to help people make immediate decisions for the stuff they have today in their bin. And of course, let's design propositions that will guarantee that there will be no food waste tomorrow. And what I want to do now is talk about a little bit more about this future level of intervention. Because I think this is the one level that less designers, less food designers, less innovators and change makers are focusing on. There's a lot of thinking that is happening to deal with the food waste that we already have, so the past level, which is brilliant. We have to do that. But I think we can also put a lot more thought into what we can do so we won't generate food waste in the first place in the future. And so this is what I want to talk about a little bit more now. So the way I think we can design for the future, for future solutions to reduce food waste so that it will not happen, is veganism and minimalism. Let's talk about both of them one by one so you understand what I mean by applying veganism and minimalism as design approaches, as food design approaches. Veganism, first of all. So veganism means no animal product, means eating fruit and vegetables, nuts and beans. No, sorry, no meat, no fish, no eggs, no dairy. So nothing that comes from animals. It is undeniable that animal farming is the #1 cause of deforestation, because animals take land, and growing food for these animals take land. It is also undeniable that animal farming is the #1 cause of CO2 emission, and therefore global warming. And it's also undeniable that animal farming takes a lot of water. Do you know that it takes 2,500 gallons of water to produce 1 pound of beef, while producing 1 pound of tofu only requires 244 gallons of water? So if we stop consuming the products that come from animal farming, meat and dairy and eggs, then we are doing a wonderful thing for the planet. One step forward, you can consider veganism as a plant-based diet. So, because, you know, French fries are vegan, your Oreos are vegan. I don't know if you knew that. But if we consider a plant-based diet, then we consider eating no processed food. So it's like the second level of veganism, a plant-based diet. The reasons, there are many reasons why we should stop eating processed food, and as food designers, stop producing, stop designing, stop making processed food. So this is really going against food product design here. And the various reasons to do that are there, of course, processing food, transforming it, etc., uses energy and resources. It is also very likely that there are inside processed food some ingredient that makes the food last a lot of time that your body doesn't really need, these chemicals and stuff. Not always, but often. And definitely another reason why not to eat processed food is because processed food 99.9% of the time comes in a packaging. And packaging, as we have seen, becomes rubbish, often very, very quickly. Rubbish that we have to deal with. It is materials that we have used, it is energy that we've used to make the packaging, and then rubbish which we have to deal with, either recycling it, which again takes energy and resources, or just throwing it in the landfill, and we know that that is the least preferable option because of the damage that it does to our planet. So I'm not saying that you have to become vegan because you think that animals' lives are as important as yours. I'm not saying that, unless you believe that. I'm also not saying that you should start a plant-based diet because of the undeniable positive effect to your health. These are the two reasons to become vegan that I'm not discussing here today. But I do ask you to consider veganism, even part-time veganism, for the planet. As a consumer and as a food designer, you can do it for the planet. You can start with maybe once or twice a week, going without animal products, or maybe 3-4 times a week, whatever suits you. For example, I myself am 100% vegetarian, but I am 80% vegan, not 100%, because I am a stereotypical Italian who loves pizza, and pizza without cheese makes no sense. So part-time veganism, I think, is perfectly fine. Even going once a week without animal products, it's already a step forward to live in a more sustainable way. We have only one planet, and if it goes, we go. And if we don't move faster, we risk losing it. So even part-time veganism for each one of us could be a very fast solution. And the speed at which veganism and minimalism, I'll discuss later, can project us towards sustainability is, to me, the #1 reason why we should consider these food design formula. So let's talk about minimalism now. Minimalism is just about owning only what you absolutely need or you think to be beautiful. Minimalism is about simplifying. It's about buying less, but it is also about buying better. From a broader perspective, minimalism is about 0 miles and 0 waste. So if you have to buy something, if I have to buy something, for example, I'll try to buy it local, I'll try to buy it ethical, I'll try to buy it sustainable. Minimalism is also about tiny living, for example. So living in only the space that you really need and with the objects that you really need. I, for example, live in an 18 square meters apartment, which most of the time I think it's too big. I own only 2 pairs of shoes. In my kitchen, there's only a rice cooker, a pan, and a pot, and a blender, and that's it. I have 2 plates, 2 forks, two knives, etc. I only have what I need. And minimalism is also about a plant-based diet. I mean, if you think about it, veganism and plant-based is minimalism applied to eating. Eating only what you really need, which has the minimum impact on the planet and on other living beings. So minimalism to me is really making the choices that have the minimum amount of impact on the planet, on other living beings. And as a consequence, you also end up simplifying your life. And believe me, because I've been trying this for the past few years, a life with less stuff is somehow richer and fuller. And one interesting thing to me is that if we look at Dieter Rams' 10 Principles of Good Design, he gave us these principles in 1970. I think they are brilliant because they're all perfectly applicable today. If we look at the last one, which is, by the way, my favorite principle of good design, is good design is as little design as possible. Good design is being able to design only the minimum necessary. And isn't that the biggest design lesson ever? Let's design less. Let's design the minimum necessary. Minimalism is liberating to me. So as food designers, we can, for example, teach people to gradually detach themselves from extreme consumerism. And this race towards buying bigger and more and buying new stuff as soon as the old one has a scratch or a missing stitch. And as food designer, we can also design in a minimalist way. We can design just the products that are really necessary, or just the products that are extraordinary meaningful, so that we are sure that the energy and the resources that we use are used towards what is really, really important. Have you ever heard of the phrase, buy less, buy better, buy local? I'm sure you have. And so in a way we can say, design less, design better, and design local. So these are the 2 principles that I am arguing we should all apply to the way we design, indeed the way we design food as well. These are not 2 new concepts. Veganism and minimalism have been around for a long time, but I think they've never been consciously and purposefully used as design approaches. And so here is my formula. I believe that minimalism and veganism are the fastest way for a sustainable food future. They are the fastest way to get there. As a consumer, we can apply veganism, even part-time veganism, today. And we can apply minimalism to make better choices for our present and future. And as food designers, we can design for veganism and we can design for minimalism, which means to design less tangible things, products, and instead to design services or systems. So what I think is really important here from a minimalistic point of view is that we have to spend more energy in talking about and discussing and prompting this shift from products to services and systems. Product design belongs in the past because product design makes you design products. If you design services and systems instead, you design only the products that are really necessary, and if you have to design them, you design them in a way that connects them to every other aspect of their system, and therefore it allows you to design in a way more sustainable way. I'm going back here now, give me just a second. Maybe I can just close this. And maybe I'm coming back. Okay, there you are. So this was it for me. This was my proposition, my food design formula. And again, I know that for many people, veganism is something extreme and not necessary. Whereas I would argue that it is important nowadays for us to take steps forward for a better planet, because we have messed with it a lot and we have to make amends, and we have to be better as food designers. So I think, and I think that veganism is really a very fast way to get there, because think about it, as a consumer yourself, or for the consumers for whom you design, we make, I don't know, at least 3 choices a day with regards to food. So as Polan says, you can choose your food world. You can make the world of food better because you have 3 choices a day. So 3 times a day you can choose which path you want to take. Do you want to go towards sustainability or other things? But I think also that again, it's not necessary for us to all become vegan, 100% vegan tomorrow. I don't think that is necessary. But I think it would be awesome if we tried once a week. If you eat like meat every day or cheese every day, once a week, try it. Start with that, and you see how it goes. And for most people, if you do it if you have this transition in a more in a way that has less of an impact, so gradually, if you do this more gradually, you don't even realize that you're doing it. So it doesn't. I don't think you. Well, I don't even remember when was the last time I ate meat, so I don't know if I can say you won't even realize that you're not even eating meat. Well, but anyway, I think if you do it gradually, you give yourself the chance to be for it to be less heavy on you. And with regards to minimalism, it is the same thing. You don't have to become 100% minimalist today. You don't have tomorrow to wake up and throw away everything. That's not necessary. You can start with the little things. Do you want to buy a new pen? Oh my God. The other day I was looking, I have a cup where I hold pens and pencils in my apartment. And I looked at it, and we are 2 in my house, myself and my partner. And we have like 10 pens. And I don't understand why we have 10 pens, because think about it, you don't need it, right? So to start with that. Start from your cup of pens and markers and pencils, and donate those that you don't need and keep those that you really need. Your kitchen, as foodies, as food changers, food designers, oh my God, your kitchen is filled with stuff that you never use, and I'm sure that in your kitchen, if you open your cupboard, you have plenty of stuff that you never use. So it's really, you can do that gradually too. Just, or the next time that you want to buy something, ask yourself, do I really want this? Do I really need this? And of course, if you're into fashion, for example, you should not throw away all your clothes. Keep the stuff that you really love, right? If you're into fashion, keep all your clothes that make you very, very, very happy. If you're into kitchen appliances and all your kitchen appliances make you very, very happy, you don't have to get rid of them. So just choose the things that you can get rid of. And in everybody's house, there's plenty of stuff that you use never. So there is this trick with regards to minimalism. Tomorrow, go to, let's say, your closet, and put into a box everything that you think you don't need, that you don't wear, or that you would like to donate, and keep the box there. If within the first 3, let's say even 6 months, if in 6 months you've never opened the box and you've never even thought about the stuff that you put in it, then it means that there is stuff that you can donate. Minimalism also means, to me, not buying new stuff unless you really want to, right? There's always the exception, of course. So do you need a new laptop? Some of us are happy with a used laptop. Do you need a new a new shirt? Some of us are happy buying used shirts. Do you need a new set of plates? You can go to the secondhand store and look there. But also it means trying to hold on to the thing, because when you have less things, the things that you have you really love. So when they break, or when you have a stitch going off or something in your clothes, then you don't want to throw them away. And so it means holding on to them, repairing them, and the act of repair, I feel, it's a very big act of love towards things. Anyway, so I'm going too long now. This is my formula for very fast, sustainable food design: minimalism plus veganism. Let me go here. So I have 2 questions from Polly. If you are still there, she wrote, I have 2 questions, but she didn't write the question. So if you are there, you can ask me the questions. And she's from Madrid. Awesome. Or he, I don't know. He or she. Oh, there it is. So there are some projects for growing meat in labs to remove animal production. I think this sounds scary, but maybe a solution to cut animal sacrifice and environmental sustainability. Yeah, lab-grown meat is something that has been researched and looked into for a while now. There's I think that from an environmental perspective, lab-grown meat is definitely has definitely a smaller impact than animal farming. Right now, but I wouldn't know what would be its environmental impact if we had tomorrow, for example, to make in the lab all the meat that we eat today, for example, the same amount of meat that we eat today, if it had to be grown in the lab, what would be its environmental impact? I don't know, because I don't know what machines they use and what things go on there, so I wouldn't know. But for some people, it's still lab-grown meat. It's still, for some vegans, lab-grown meat is still animal products because it comes from stem cells, if I'm correct. And so it's still something that is not necessary, because at the end of the day, veganism from a minimalistic perspective, let me put this up, is about eating only what you need. So in terms of proteins, you need proteins. You don't necessarily need animal proteins. So this is what the research that I have read says. So, and of course, do your own research and make up your own mind about this. But so the proteins that we need, they don't need to necessarily come from meat, but they can come from lentils, beans, tofu, quinoa, and whatever else. So in that sense, a vegan might argue that lab-grown meat is not necessary. And the other interesting thing about veganism is now we have all these burgers that look like burgers, but they are 100% vegan. And so some might argue, why do you need to make a product that looks like meat, but it's not? If you don't want to eat meat because you choose a vegan diet, then why do you need to eat a product that looks like meat? And my answer to that is that in fact, that might be a very good product for those who are in the process of transitioning from a meat-based diet to a vegan diet, to a plant-based diet, because you still crave, I think for a long time, when you don't eat meat anymore, you still crave the textures and the flavors and the feeling of fat in your mouth. You still crave that for a little bit. So I guess that type of product helps with that type of transition. Does that answer your question, Polly? I hope it does. And that's it. I don't know for how long I've been going on, but it seems like a long time. So I am going to say thank you, everybody, for listening, for watching this video. And thank you for all those who will be watching the video later on. And oh, yes, before I forget, because I am very passionate about this this food design formula, and it's something that I like to shout to the world. I have made these t-shirts, which you can buy, and I have put the link to the virtual shop in the description of this video. And this is a t-shirt, but you can print the same graphic on aprons, on mugs, on hats, on hoodies, whatever you want. And you'll also find in there a bunch of other graphics that I've done. They're all food design related, and you can go there and check it out, and maybe give a Christmas present to yourself or some other food design enthusiast that you know of. But this is definitely, maybe because I'm a bit of a geek and graphic t-shirts, I really like them, but it's really something that I like to shout to the world, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Now I would really like to know what you guys think about this, and what you think about applying veganism and minimalism not only to your everyday life as consumers, but to your life as food innovators, change makers, and food designers. Having said that, I'm going to say, as always, have a lovely day and happy food design.